YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. We're headed into wild card weekend here in the NFL playoffs. Regular season's done, and I got my top 5 players at each position based off the regular season. Do this video every year. We actually do it halfway through the season too. So at mid-season we did this. So we'll take a look who's in the top 5 each position now. We'll also see if they were ranked or where they were ranked the top 5 last time. A lot of guys that weren't ranked halfway through the season, so good to see some new faces in here. We're going to rank all 32 starting quarterbacks next week probably. We did that at halfway point as well, so similar video. After the playoffs, I do a top 100 players of the 2020 season video. Right now, though, videos like this, full playoff coverage, off-season videos, all kinds of action here at the Goat House. So subscribe if you're new, be much appreciated. Check out that Twitter. You guys, we're going to have an award video coming up, too. We'll be giving out awards. You guys will have the fan vote awards, too. You're going to be voting for that on the Twitter. Those will be posted sometime today. Today's the 7th of January. So look out, follow that Twitter. Look out for those polls. A lot going on there. Any link that you need for any of these, a sided app where you can win Amazon gift cards, the links will be down in the description and comments for every single video. Right before we get to my top 5s, I did mention that Twitter, but I want to show you guys. A lot of you have been following lately. Appreciate you very much. Yeah, you guys are voting for Super Bowl right now. You guys voted for every step of the way. You're voting for Super Bowl. You'll vote for each playoff rounds matchup. So the matchups, when we get them next week, we'll repost those. They could be different than what we once thought here. And again, you guys will be voting for the awards. You know, by the time you're listening to this, the award polls might be up already. So check it out at Goat House NFL. Always talking during live games as well. So check it out. Top 5 quarterbacks. Again, we'll get to my top 32 ranking the starting quarterbacks. That'll be next week. So it'll be a similar video, but ranking all the quarterbacks. Rodgers, who was ranked 3rd, that 3 next to his name there, you see. Halfway through the season, he's made his way up to number 1 for me. It's definitely debatable between the top 3, in my opinion. They're all very close. But I got Rodgers at 1. You know, I think, the Packers felt like took that next step going down the stretch of the season. They really got hot, and I think a big reason is their best player in Aaron Rodgers there. So, it feels like he's got better since last year, crazy enough. But yeah, I mean, you can see the knowledge on the field, just understanding defenses, hitting any type of throw, getting the ball out faster than anybody, still able to use his legs. I mean, all that, a touchdown machine, obviously. If the Packers are going to get down the red zone, they're going to execute. Some teams have really good offenses, but they kind of struggle in that end. That's kind of what separates the men from the boys. But not Rodgers and his team, because what he's been able to do in the regular season, we'll see if it keeps up in the playoffs. Josh Allen's number 2. Like I said, he wasn't ranked halfway through the season. Early in the year, he was a top 5 guy. Then he started to slow down, and when we got to the halfway season top 5 video, he didn't make it because he was just slowing down, but he was just outside. I put him at 2, and why you can debate 1 and maybe why I haven't had him Patrick Mahomes is because, Patrick Mahomes has some similar things as well, but there's not too much of a run game for those offenses. So pretty much the game plan and the strategy is going to be just purely just stopping that quarterback, and what he's able to do, overcome that. It's pretty ridiculous. I think they got a wide, playbook, like a wide variety of their plays in the playbook, and it's just ridiculous. I think you're only able to do that if your quarterback is good enough, has the capabilities, is versatile enough to do all that. So those, the combination of all of those and what he's able to do and improve, I mean, I think that puts him at 2. Like I said, Patrick Mahomes is the overcome of teams not fearing the run game as well. They're just game playing for him. I think his weapons, do really spread the field out. So does Josh Allen, but I think a little more. So it's a little easier on Mahomes. When it's all said and done, in general, I think Patrick Mahomes is the best player in all of football. This is just based off this season alone. Patrick Mahomes has the best team in football right now, the best record, so I guess that can play a part in it as well. But all these guys feel like number 1 guys. They're all MVP candidates for a reason. And again, I think Mahomes is the best player in football in general, but right now, based on what they've done this season, especially down the stretch, is the way I got it. I got Deshaun Watson at 4, who wasn't in the top 5. He started off a little slow, then really started picking up, making some ridiculous plays, very consistent, very accurate. I think his accuracy improved, actually. Offensive line still hasn't been helping him. With the plays he's been able to make, puts his team in position to win mostly every single week. So I thought he was a top 5 guy despite the number of wins for the Texans. Russell Wilson still comes in the top 5. I know he went down a little bit since early in the year. He was number 2, and right there would put Patrick Mahomes for number 1. But yeah, he hasn't been playing as good. There's been some games where he's actually played kind of bad a little bit, taking sacks, running into sacks, holding the ball a little too long. Still playing at a very high level, obviously. So just stays in the top 5. some other guys. Each position group we can go over other guys just missed. I know there's always those comments. Where's this guy? Where's that guy? People kind of expect me to rank 35 guys in the top 5. Can't really work like that. So if you don't see your player, a certain player, doesn't mean I don't think he's good. It's only 5. It's only a select few here. So there's other guys we can debate there for the quarterback. I could sit here all day and talk about other guys that are probably deserving, but these are the 5 I went with. For running backs, Derrick Henry took the show there. He took number 1. He was number 2 behind Dalvin Cook, but he just went wild in the second half of the season, leading the NFL in rushing yards, but just dominating games and winning the games for the Titans. If Derrick Henry wasn't there, they would have lost the game. Even though they can throw, they have other playmakers, but there's just so many of those moments where he just shows how valuable he is to the team. So he's at number 1. Dalvin Cook at number 2. Was having a phenomenal year there, right there with Derrick Henry. They're really way in the lead in terms of production. And Cook, he's definitely the ultimate traits guy. If you look at running back traits, he's got the vision, the quickness, hitting that hole, the explosiveness after that. Cook fills all that out, and it kind of shows on the field. Alvin Kamara's 3. And that brings up a discussion of Alvin Kamara because he's such a, if you're combining receiving ability, he might be the very best, but then he's really not on par with Henry and Cook in terms of how they ran, how they produced as a running back. So I guess that brings up some debates. Huge Kamara guy though. He's definitely the best, receiving back, so that puts him at the top. He remains at 3 since halfway through the year. Aaron Jones comes in at 4, so we see another Green Bay Packer here. He was at 4 before. He's still at 4. Kind of goes unnoticed sometimes just because how good Rodgers, Devontae Adams are, them in the passing game. But Aaron Jones, makes their job easier by running at a high level. So much explosive plays, being able to catch the ball a little better than he has in the past. That's fantastic. So he stays at 4. Nick Chubb wasn't ranked last time mainly because that was right around the time where he got hurt and missed quite a few games. Came back and really just dominating, show why he's one of the stronger runners in football. So he comes in at 5. Yeah, I didn't really have to think about this one too much. There's other guys that had really good seasons, obviously, but these were the 5, no doubt in my mind there. So there's a lot of position groups where choosing 5, the small number of 5, really, you really feel it, like, oh, I want to have this guy in there, this guy. Not so much for the running backs. Other guys were great, don't get me wrong, but these were the 5 for me. Receivers, another Green Bay Packer, Devontae Adams leads the way. Actually pretty tight. I thought Stephon Diggs played like a number 1 receiver this year. He was fantastic. But Devontae Adams, what he's able to do, absolute touchdown machine, but his route running seems like it's getting better by game. The ability to throw teams off by playing in the slot, playing outside. You're going to need to bracket him to stop him, and that might not even stop, might slow him down a little bit. But, yeah, just absolutely dominant, and he doesn't really have there's some other receivers that are kind of sleeper receivers for the Packers that show up and they've showed up for them, at times. But, I think he's got to carry the load a little bit, and the defenses know that. What's game plan for this guy, and he's still able to dominate. Diggs, phenomenal season. Probably the best deep threat in football, I'd say, with his route running, footwork, speed, all of that. Just a home run hitter, really. And you can give him the ball in any way, not just downfield, obviously. But yeah, the route running ability, the footwork is just getting better and better. And just such a perfect pairing with Josh Allen. I talked about that, how that was going to be. I talked about it in the offseason, so I'm glad that worked out. Tyreek Hill's at 3. The fastest man in football, just dominates, the vertically, right there with Diggs in terms of a downfield threat because of his speed and quickness. And you kind of can know what's coming, and it just affects the games, in so many ways. He's not really, I guess, technical like Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. He's kind of he does rely on his speed, but, he's a smart player as well. But it's, his talent kind of just makes its presence known, I guess, because you know it's coming. He's going to beat you deep, and you have to play, even when you know it's coming, he'll still burn you deep, but then you can kind of fix that a little bit by playing even further off the ball, but then you're just leaving so much space in front of you. He's just such a problem. Racking up those touchdowns downfield, that's what got him at 3. Him and DeAndre Hopkins were pretty close. I think maybe the touchdown production could have been a difference. Hopkins did have some fumbles, too, that didn't help his team, but obviously it's still a top 5 receiver, still dominant. If you need one catch, it's not really just basing off the Hail Mary. That's a good example, but not just basing off one play, but if you need one catch in a game, this is it. DeAndre Hopkins might be that guy. He might just be that guy. So he's in the top 5 at 4. 5 was an absolute battle. This is kind of where 5 feels like a small number because I wanted other guys in there. I put DK Metcalf in there. He was actually 1. Halfway through the season, he was insane. Like So he's still kind of riding on that first half of the season that kept him in the top 5, but we're talking about the whole regular season, not just the ending, He still played well towards the end, but such a dominant, portion of the season where it kept him in there. But the rookie Justin Jefferson was strongly considered. There's a lot of guys that were considered. Mike Evans really turned it on the stretch of the season. So guys like that, I could sit here and list a bunch. A.J. Brown, the other Ole Miss receiver, strongly considered. Probably some other guys top of my head. When I went to work on this, those guys were strongly considered, at the time. I'm not just sit here and list them all off, but kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. But DK, yeah, you can't take away what he's done most of the season. I mean, we talk about the better deep threats in football, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill. Why? Because of their footwork and speed. But how about Metcalf with his speed, speed on top of that power, ability to throw man coverage off him, ability to fight for the ball, contested catch freak, obviously. He showed up a lot, making the big-time plays when they really needed it. Seahawks, when they really needed somebody to step up. It's kind of Metcalf. So, in general, maybe he's lacking some underneath plays and across the middle of the field plays to where if you're ranking receivers, and just in general, not by their production this year, not by their play this year, just in general. Maybe he probably wouldn't be in there for most people because of that, and I can understand that argument. But I think just based on this season alone, what he was able to do, I know teams started to figure him out a little bit down the stretch of the season, but every week mattered, I guess, when going into this. So he's still at 5 there. But like I said, a lot of guys, this was a tough position to leave some guys out, but just top 5, so it's tough. Tight ends, went Travis Kelce 1, still stayed at 1. It's pretty obvious. I mean, see a lot of those guys just spreading the field out, stretching the field out. He's dominating in the middle, but also could spread it out as well. Just such a dominant route runner, and will throw defenders off him when he needs to impress. They try to press him, and he's up there with receivers and yardage too at the top, so it's ridiculous. Darren Waller feels like a number 1 tight end, but Travis Kelce's that good. Waller's not too far off. Athletic freak, a mismatch problem. So Darren Waller, big play after big play this year. Feels like a number 1 guy. Mark Andrews boosted up to number 3. He was dropping the ball too often early in the year for me to rank him halfway through the season, but now he boosts up to 3. Just such a key, most important spot of that passing game for Lamar Jackson there, so he's at 3. TJ Hawkinson was fantastic, very productive. They get him going in the underneath game, small ball game and downfield. I thought he was a force in the red zone as well, so he's at number 4. And Robert Tonyan, talk about force in the red zone, touchdown machine. And the Packers got all these tight ends. You think this one's going to work, you think that one's going to work. Ends up being Tonyan, and that's how good he is, taking that spot over and building up that chemistry at Rodgers. It was, again, I guess halfway through the season, it's like, I don't know if there's enough good tight ends. It's kind of lacking, but now I almost want to put some other guys in here as well. Gesicki was really hard leaving Mike Gesicki off here. I think he did really well. Not a team that stretched the field a whole bunch as well, so he was impressive. Noah Fant got very impressive. There's a lot of guys here. Those guys top of my head. A lot of guys that were strongly considered very solid tight ends here that looking pretty good. And George Kittle missed most of the year, so he's normally going to be at the top. Next, we'll talk about the interior offense line. So this is guard and center combined. We only see one center make the list, but Quentin Nelson, number 1. He was number 2 before, and he was right there at number 1. Just continue to dominate going forward, not giving up pressures and creating these insane size holes. You see why he actually, in general, he's the best guard in football. And you would like, for you to feel confident about calling these guys in general, going into any given year the best. You want to see them actually do that in that year that you're discussing. You feel a little more comfortable. Quentin Nelson goes out and does that. L.A. Marpet got ridiculous down the stretch as well, which boosted him up from number 3 to number 2. Small school kid, just dominating the NFL. Joe Bitonio is actually going to miss the playoff game this week, which is tough. He was 1. It's really nothing he did. I thought those other guys just played, an insane level. They stood out to me when watching games, so they moved up to the top 2 spots. Brandon Scherf was a really key piece to Washington, really holding that group together. They're going to need to get him back because he's a dominant, run blocker and pass protector. And Corey Linsley was a key piece for the Packers there. Another guy that I thought probably should have made the Pro Bowl. Number 4 before, now number 5. Just other guys just really standing out, boosted their stock, I suppose. But yeah, I think trend here, a combination of winning in run reps and winning in pass protection, combination of that. These guys were consistent in both those, so that's kind of what led to mainly putting these guys in top 5. Same kind of goes for the tackles as well. The tackles, David Bakhtiari, which now is hurt, so that's a huge loss for the Packers. Another guy towards the top here in the rankings for the Packers. But so we'll see how they will be without him. That's a tough loss. I thought he's the best. I thought when watching football, I watch an insane amount of football. Offensive linemen don't normally stand out, but I mean, this is a guy that really stands out. You catch him just getting downfield, making some big-time plays for his team. So Dwayne Brown at 2. The Seahawks offensive line's not necessarily good, but Dwayne Brown's very good. Another guy that gets his ass downfield and makes some big-time plays, big-time blocks. If they didn't have him, they would be the worst offensive line by far. Laramie Tunsil, another one, just like really the only piece that felt like that Texans offensive line holding it together was definitely a key addition. We see why. How about Darrell Williams for the Bills? They had him. He's playing right tackle. He's playing at a very, very high level, especially down the stretch. I mean, shutting guys down. You see Josh Allen. In the middle of the season, there was getting some pressure, Josh Allen, and all of a sudden he's kind of got all day to throw because guys like this, they're all getting better every step of the way. Darrell Williams in the past, pretty good if he was healthy. So, yeah, you see him. He's really playing well. And Trent Williams, not letting anything by him. The rest of the Niners offensive line, a little disappointing, I guess. Not saying they're bad, but some guys you expect a little better. Trent Williams holding it together, not letting much by him. And he's also pretty solid run blocking as well, mainly pass protector. So those are the top 5. You see 2 that weren't ranked halfway through the season. Going on in the interior defensive line, this is probably my favorite position of football because I think these guys are more game changers than everyone gives the credit to Aaron Donald and Chris Jones, but then people I think the position, when you think interior defensive line, whether it's D tackle, D end in the 3-4, nose tackle, whatever it is, they don't give enough credit. They're such game changers and getting interior pressure and stopping a run. They got to do so much. There's a lot of guys that didn't make this list that are deserving. There's just a lot of ballers in this position. Aaron Donald's one. He was one before. I mean, just constant pressure on the quarterback, making those plays, and he just makes everyone around him better. I mean, everybody around him better. We see Leonard Floyd taking the next step in his career. He had a really good year. He deserves credit, but Aaron Donald gets some credit for that as well. Chris Jones is continuing to rack up pressure, really carrying that group. That group is really lacking and disappointing in terms of pressure. Chris Jones is really dominating that. We know he's a dominant run stuffer, has double teamed a lot as well. How about Leonard Williams? He's a 3-4 defensive end that's still considered interior because it's 3-4 defense, but he was a monster this year, especially in the second half of the year, tearing it up. Stopping the run, constantly getting pressure. It almost feels like he's a pass rusher at the same time. He is a 3-4 end, but still a defensive lineman here. Extremely impressed with him. This is the guy we thought USC. This is the USC Leonard Williams. And right when he came in, he looked that good, but then it kind of disappeared for a little bit. And I was starting to get worried about him and that trade for the Giants, and man, he took off. Stephon Tuitt also plays 3-4 end, and he was a ruckus this year as well. Some similar play as Leonard Williams, getting pressure, just making plays after play. And DeForest Buckner comes in at 5. A combination of things, stopping and run, getting pressure. But I think, adding him to that Colts defense made them that much better. I think that showed this year. That's a big positive there, what gets him on the list. So Leonard Williams and DeForest Buckner weren't ranked the first time around. I mean, there are so many guys. There are so many guys that kind of wanted to rank here that I just couldn't. Because I think these were the top 5. I mean, we can talk about it in the comments, but there's a long list of guys. Some guys we saw the first time around. How about Quinnen Williams? Quinnen Williams almost made it. He really started to tear it up. I think consistent stopping the run, consistent getting after the quarterback. So that's definitely a guy to look out for going forward. Really bright future. And we kind of knew that, obviously. Everyone knew that. Talk about the edge rushers. I got TJ Watt at 1. I thought he played a little better the first half of the year, but still number 1, still a dominant player. Not even just rushing the passer, but stepping off, making plays in run game and getting his hands on the ball, pass deflections. He makes his presence felt for sure. Myles Garrett the same. If he didn't miss a couple games there, he could have been number 1. But, I think the top 2 really separate themselves for sure. I like Zadarius Smith, though. And another presence guy. And he actually racked up the production, ended up getting about 12 and a half sacks. Whenever the Packers need to play on defense, somebody from their front 7, I think they're relying on Zadarius Smith. I think he carries that group quite a bit. Kenny Clark is a nose tackle, so definitely a different position, but he's a guy they rely on for some interior pressure. But he was hurt and kind of was slow to get back into things. Now he's kind of getting going again. And then Preston Smith, not as good as he was last year. So Zadarius Smith really has to carry that load, and he is the guy that teams have to focus on, in terms of the game plan because what he's able to do, what he's able to move around. Khalil Mack at 4. Really, it's a disappointing season from Khalil Mack, but he's still a top 5 pass rusher. I think he's evenly good in stopping the run and getting after the quarterback. Gets pressure, given that he's double teamed a lot as well. I wish the production was a little higher. I expected him to get an insane amount of sacks this year. I guess maybe that's more disappointing than Robert Quinn. I think having his presence would help Khalil Mack, but he was a little disappointing. But Khalil Mack's still a top 5 player. How about Hassan Reddick? Finally playing in the right position. Graded him as a first-round guy coming out of Temple. For some reason, the Cardinals moved to inside linebacker. Mistake. Looked like a bust. And then they turned him back into a pass rusher, and now he's thriving. And he's a production king here. Just maybe he won't have as many total pressures as these other guys, but he's getting after the quarterback, getting the quarterback down, forcing a ton of fumbles. So the production, I'm not a huge stats guy, I guess, I'm not going to go off of only stats, but a lot of that stuff matters, and he was getting better and better, and well deserving of a top 5 in my opinion. There's a lot. Brian Burns, I like Brian Burns a lot. It was really tough. I'm a huge Brian Burns guy. It was really tough leaving him out. He's getting constant pressure. He's so close to leading the league in sacks, even though I think he got 9. He was very close, believe it or not. He was right there. Pass rush traits, moves are there. He's definitely one. He could end up being the best pass rusher in football, really, in the future here. So definitely one to look out for. The Buccaneers duo, Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul. Trey Hendrickson ended up having a lot of production there for the Saints. They need to play him more. They need to get on the field more of a snap count. There's quite a few guys. We can sit here and list them all off, but we're talking about top 5s today. Off the ball linebackers, Fred Warner takes it number 1. The combination of coverage ability, instincts, and in stopping the run to sideline to sideline. Last year, he really took that step up. He was great, but you kind of can notice some moments, on tape that were, he took a weird angle, or he, missed an assignment here, missing a gap here. This year, I think he really cleaned it up. I think he was a lot better this year, and he was really good last year, so that says a lot. Just a total package guy. He's kind of creating today's type of linebacker, so it's good to see. Got to respect it. He was 3, now he's 1. Bobby Wagner, a big reason why the Seahawks defense kind of took that next step. He's always been kind of that key piece, always been good, but he was getting more involved, getting after the quarterback, a little better in coverage as well compared to he was already good in coverage, but a little better compared to the first half of the season. Just always dominant in the run game. Definitely one of my bigger draft hits of all time there. So Bobby Wagner goes up to number 2 from 5 to 2. When they blitz him, he's pretty effective. Levante David was 1-3. Nothing really he did. The other guys were just outstanding, insane, But Levante David kind of holding that Bucs defense together, a do-it-all type of guy. Devin White be more productive, I guess, getting after the quarterback for a blitzer. But Levante David, he's kind of that key piece of that defense, sideline to sideline, very good in coverage, just very consistent player. Devin White, tackling machine. He could be a little better in coverage. It felt like he was better in coverage at LSU, but, so you thought he'd be better, but he's not bad, but he could be a little better if I had a knock on him, but just so productive, flying around the field, sniffing out runs in the backfield. But how about him as a pass rusher, not on the edge, of course, but as a pass rusher rushing the inside? He's the key. When the Buccaneers have mismatch problems for other teams, it's because of their blitz and different ways they can get pressure. Devin White is maybe the biggest piece of that. So he's definitely deserving me in the top 5. I put Demario Davis in here. Demario Davis, when the Saints all of a sudden went on their run of being a top-tier defense, I think Demario Davis was the biggest piece. It felt like he was kind of the biggest piece, him or Cam Jordan, as it was already, but they started rushing Demario Davis more. He's kind of the guy that kind of just pre-snap reads, and he's almost like the quarterback of that defense, moving around, understanding what's happening, flying around the field, flying in the backfield, so rangy, so good in coverage. So total package type of guy. So I definitely thought he deserved a spot. I had Eric Kendricks in here, but sitting down, thinking he played 11 games this year, and I think if he would have finished the season, I know he can't help it, but it still kind of hurts but I think if he would have finished the season, the Vikings actually could have maybe snuck into playoffs there, because they were really missing him. But if he played a whole season, he could have been number 1. He did a lot of things Fred Warner did. Fred Warner's going to be a little more athletic, but Eric Kendricks, coverage ability. We already knew he's a really good run stopper, but coverage ability and making those big-time plays in coverage, ridiculous. So it was tough that he missed a few games there. Darius Leonard just missed a cut, starting to make more and more plays, consistent tackler. Wasn't that great in coverage this year compared to normal. Still solid. Roquan Smith was fantastic this year, so that's a guy that just missed a cut as well. These off-the-ball linebackers are really good. They're really good in today's NFL. Big impact guys. Corners, battle between, I'd say the top three feel like number one corners, top three. All these guys are ranked halfway through the season, so I have the same guys ranked here, just different order. Jalen Ramsey to me, ridiculous, elite season, lockdown guy, can make plays if he needs to, but lockdown. He averaged giving up 20 yards per game. Was that 2 10-yard passes or a few 5-yard passes? It's absolutely ridiculous. Locking down without help on the back end, locking down number one receivers. But his ability to come up and tackle, and he wants to tackle, come up and pop people, consistent tackler. I think Jalen Ramsey, all around, one of the better players in all of football, really. Xavier Howard, one of my draft hits. I loved him out of Baylor. A couple years ago, I was hyping him up like he's going to be a top, 1, 2, or 3 corner, and now that's looking pretty good here. He feels like a number one. I love me some Jalen Ramsey, the completeness to his game, but Howard's the best playmaker. This is the best playmaker in football. So good at reading the quarterback, so good at jumping routes, going up and get high pointing the ball better than receivers. Elite season, fantastic. Jair Alexander, another one of the guys in the first year playing at Louisville. I just knew, I'm like, this guy's got it, future first-round pick. So happy to see some of these guys thriving here. Feels like a number one corner. Lockdown, kind of like Jalen Ramsey, kind of lockdown guy. I think Ramsey a little more, but yeah, a little better in the tackling department as well. But Alexander right there with him. Top three. Marlon Humphrey, so tight in coverage, forcing fumbles like crazy. He's got a tough task, too. They run, the Ravens run a little more man cover zero, so you got to rely on your corners quite a bit. He'll be so tight in coverage and good at reading the quarterback. And Xavier Rhodes potentially reviving his career. He was number one corner in football for a little bit there a few years ago, because how physical he was, not letting anybody by him, and, and then he all of a sudden took a huge step down. Insane. And now he's back. Now he feels like he's back, consistent in coverage, not letting guys, beat him. He doesn't have a whole bunch of responsibility deep because they run a little more cover too, but yeah, he's been locked down. It's tough to run. You got to run it the right way. So I thought Rhodes had a really good year. Obviously, a lot more corners that are very solid. These are the 5 I went with, and then we'll end it with the safeties. The safeties, one with Jesse Bates, I think is the best safety in football here. Free safety, making plays in the back end, so good reading the quarterback, coming out, making a play, pass deflection, whatever it is to get his hands on the ball. He's a playmaker guy. And it's just like he carries the Bengals defense a little bit, such a key piece there. How about John Johnson? The other guy, a few years ago, I was kind of predicting to make his way in the top 5 safeties. Didn't really end up working out. I think he got hurt last year, though. But now he's back in it. I think how versatile he is, the versatility of John Johnson. I think able to play different type of safety positions. Free, strong, come up in the box, do everything. Play in the back end, get rangy. Taylor Rapp went down, and he was kind of that guy. Is he free? Is he strong? Because he's kind of both. He's a good pairing with John Johnson. But Taylor Rapp goes down, so we get to see more of John Johnson, more of what he can do. And I thought he was fantastic. Him and that's the best defense in football, I think, down the stretch. Him and Jalen Ramsey just taking control of that secondary. And then how about the Boston College safeties, Johnson and Simmons, the Boston College duo. Justin Simmons, just like Jesse Bates, one of the better free safeties in football. Simmons might have more of a responsibility. He gets kind of caught one-on-one in the back end, or whether it's tackling or catching the ball. They were lacking at corners. They got Jackson up in the box a lot, so Simmons got a lot of ground to cover, and so he might have the hardest job out of any safety, really, and I think he does a pretty damn good job at it. So he's top 3. Adrian Amos really came alive, and he was really good in the first half. Second half really came alive. I think he's pretty damn instinctive. I think, flying around the field, making plays in the backfield, making third down stops, making the plays in coverage. How about his teammate Darnell Savage? He actually almost made the cut as well, being the playmaker that he is in the back end, too. He's getting better and better. I went with Tyrann Mathieu here for the 5 spot. And, another instinctive guy. He does it all, too. You see him in coverage. The game plan. The Chiefs are pretty flexible what they can do with their coverages game plan, and I think it starts with Matthew because they can play him as a coverage guy in the back end and come up in the box, and you see how instinctive he is. It's ridiculous. One of the more instinctive guys. Just constantly making plays. Just such a key piece. So I put him at 5. Buda Baker was close. Harrison Smith was close. I talked about Darnell Savage there. Top of my head, a lot of guys went into this to one making the top 5, but I thought these were the best 5 when it was all said and done this year. So that'll be my ranking. So I did skill positions and I did offensive linemen as well. So you can let me know your top 5s in the comments there or on Twitter. But you guys, like I said, the award award polls, and sometimes we come up with awards, do some extra awards. Those will be on Twitter. I'll have mine in a video as well as yours in that same video. So you guys are going to want to follow that Twitter to play along, to get involved, to see who wins what. That's going to be a big part. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. All right. Smash that like button, subscribe, turn notifications on, full NFL, full playoff coverage. We got you covered here. So join us for all that. It'd be much appreciated. That is going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.